Okay. We are recording, and yes.
So whenever you're ready, Bill.
Okay. I'm going to talk about something I like to do, and I'm sure it's going to bore every one of you to death, but I like to fish. So I researched bass fishing. And in Oklahoma, we have two types. We actually have a lot of types of bass. I'm focusing primarily on the largemouth and smallmouth bass. We've got striper, black, and sand, and all different kinds of bass. But the one I'm going to focus on would be the smallmouth and largemouth bass. Smallmouth bass, I have pictures. Their eyes, line their eye up, comes to the end of their mouth. Have largemouth bass, the mouth comes behind the eye. So if you drew a picture from the eye straight down, and the mouth goes past the eye, it's a largemouth. If it's right even with the eye, it's a smallmouth bass. They both have different things that they like. The smallmouth bass like rocks, gravel, things like that. Use a different type of lure. They like the spinner lure. This is what they call a spinner. They said yellow was the best color, but I didn't have yellow, but it's a spinner. The idea is that this little thing here, when you pull it through the water, spins, gets light, bass like that. So they usually like slow moving water and not a lot of vegetation. However, largemouth bass are just the opposite. They like kind of murky water. They like lots of vegetation, dead trees, stumps, things like that, boat docks and things like that. You can use a couple of lures to work with them. This is a plastic worm. I've got it hooked up on the hook. I didn't hook it up weedless. You can hook this up to where the worm comes over this, so you don't get hung up on weeds or sticks or anything like that. I just put it on there so you can see what a plastic worm looks like. For some reason, they think that's appetizing. But you throw it out and let it set, and you just use your rod end to kind of pick it up, and they'll hit it. They also really like what's called a topwater plug. This sits on top of the water. The only time you can use this plug, though, is when the water is still, and so you don't have a lot of wind, and that's kind of hard in Oklahoma unless you're back in a cove somewhere. But these are very, very effective. I caught my biggest bass on one very similar, look just pretty close to this one. It was about 8-pound bass, and that's a pretty good sized bass, black bass. State record for smallmouth bass in Oklahoma is 8 pounds, 3 ounces, caught in Lake Eufaula. State record for largemouth bass is 14 pounds and 11 ounces. So the largemouth bass do get quite a bit bigger. 8-pound smallmouth is huge. They just don't normally, usually you'll see between 4 and 6 pounds. The normal largemouth bass you'll see anywhere from 2 to 5 pounds. But like I said, I've caught a bunch over 5. But the biggest one I've caught a little over 8. And I was in a tube, sitting in a cove. You know what, everybody knows what a tenor tube is, sitting and fishing in a tube, and it pulled me all over the cove. Well, I'm in his element, so pulled him all over. Crawdads are favorite foods of all of the bass. The smallmouth bass, that's what they primarily go after, because they're in the rocks, and that's where you'll see crawdads when they're scooting around on the bottom of it, and they like that. So I was kind of surprised about that. I really thought they liked worms and minnows and things like that. But largemouth bass will eat anything he can get in his mouth. He'll eat a turtle, he'll eat a fish, he'll eat duck, baby duck, or whatever. They're not picky about what they eat. If they get in their mouth, they'll eat it. They call them piranha of fresh water. So, and their mouth gets big. You can stick your fist in their mouth pretty easily. Decent sized one. They like frogs and things like that. Anyway, bass are found all over the United States. They are the most popular game fish as far as what anglers look for. So, and that's all I have to say about bass fishing.
4 minutes even. Do we have any questions for Bill?
This means when my dad said the fish will bite your toes and you follow, he was right.
He wasn't kidding.
I always took it lightly.
Well, both of those were caught in Lake Eufaula. The state record for both those was caught in Lake Eufaula.
Now, do you prefer lures or do you prefer live bait?
It depends. If I'm fishing with my grandson, bait.
Okay.
But because lures, you have to keep moving.
Mm-hmm.
You can't throw the same lure in the same spot all the time. You have to change and move around and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I like both. It depends on what if I'm out fishing with another buddy or something, then I like lures because you can move around, and especially if you have access to a boat or a tube or something like that when you get out in the water.
Why do people like the noodle?
That's the dumbest thing I ever heard in my life. I would never stick my head underneath a rock or log that I couldn't see what was there.
Have you seen that show?
Yeah.
They've got that show.
They stick their head. They go and find these big old holes. They stick their hands and their feet and stuff. Their whole bodies they'll stick in there sometimes to get in there and grab the fish and pull it out.
Put their hand in the fish's mouth. And they get in there, and if they're careful, those catfish will just lay there. And they'll sit there and stick their whole hand in their mouth, and when they grab, they claw down on that catfish is going to clamp down on them and the bites on them. But the problem is, we've got some huge alligator turtles and snapping turtles in Oklahoma, and they'll take your whole finger off. They'll take your finger or 2 or 3 fingers off with one bite.
That just doesn't sound very smart to me.
It's not, because what if it's a snake den or something?
Oh, yeah.
It's smarter to stay home.